Greetings everyone. Today me and my other two classmates, Jonathan David and M. Azrardy, are going to present about the recent topic results accountability. Next, I'll be discussing about the first chapter, which is what is result accountability and how does it work. Next, so before going further, we must understand the definition of results accountability. Here it is mentioned that result accountability is a disciplined way of thinking and taking action that can be used in improving the lives of a community, also nations, also states. As a result, result accountability is also used by agencies to improve the performance of their programs. So by this we can conclude that result accountability is the thinking logic that we use to solve problem in our daily life. On the other hand, result accountability also have no formula and it is used for the efficiency and effectiveness for the end results. Next. So how does results accountability works? Result accountability works starts with the ends and work backward step by step and to the means or the end condition. An example of the end condition is the outcome or the output that is given by the effort or the action that we are doing by results accountability. For example, in the communities, the end result is harmony and also clean environment. So possibly uh, the accountability is the way how they fix it to become like that, and also programs which is becoming one of the example from the book. Next. How can results-based accountability help us? First, result-based accountability or results accountability help us from the phase of talking or discussion to the action phase. Or accountability refers to the inclusive process where diversity is an asset and everyone in a community can contribute to it for a better community. So here I'm showing you the steps that is done by results accountability from talk to action in the communities or in cities or nations maybe. So this is the steps that usually is being concluded in results accountability. So usually people repeat the steps and if the first step is done, they are going to the next step, to the next step, and finally when uh, the results are shown, they stop the process. Next, here are the two importance in result accountability. First is data. Why data is important? Data is important because it shows the improvement of our work, the process or the upgrade of our work, and also data shows us that is result accountability is effective yet is excellent for the things that we are doing. On the other hand, language is also important because language can conduct result indicator baseline turning curve to a better movement strategies to the output and also performance measures. Next is going to present by my friend Azi.
Thank you, Aga. Now we're going to talk about Chapter 2, the building blocks of result accountability. Next, starting with the common language, common sense, and common ground. These are the three things that everyone who wants to achieve or who wants to attain result accountability have to pay attention to. The first one is common language or the agreement on the words used to convey meaning. This, uh, when the people are able to attain this will reduce miscommunication as everyone will immediately understand what the other person is saying because no term will be mistaken for another. This will also reduce the number of unnecessary arguments that may occur, which also result in an increased productivity. The second one is common sense. This one, we're talking specifically about how we ha- we have to have the mindset of starting with the end and work backwards towards the means. This will increase focus as everyone won't be too preoccupied with the means, which often results in us losing our way. The third one is common ground, which is a condition where people can gather and agree that an issue can only be solved by working together. Next. So now we're going to talk about the language of result accountability. This, we move on to the stage once those three things have been attained. Starting out with on the population level, which is the result. Result is a population condition of the well-being of the people. This is basically the main goal of the whole program. Examples of this are world peace, clean environment, and safe community. Going down the ladder, the second one is indicator. Indicator is the benchmark used to measure the achievement of a result. An indicator allows the people involved in results accountability to this allows them to know how closer they are to achieving the result by looking at the indicator. The examples of these are percent of world population living in poverty for the world peace, percent of days below air quality standards for the clean environment, and crime rate for safe community. Next. The third one is strategy or the plan or a collection of ways on how to achieve or improve the result. Examples of this are installation of new street lights and creating a new community center. We're going to move on with the performance measure because strategy is self-explanatory. For the fourth one, performance measure is a measure to assess how well a program, agency, or service system is performing. This is more specific compared to indicators because different programs will have their own performance measures that are different from other programs with different services. Examples of this are percent of crimes with successful prosecution. This is for the, for example, this is for a program such as police department, for example, and the average police department response time. Again, for a program such as police department. Next. Okay. Moving on, now we're going to talk about what's the difference between population and performance accountability. And first, why should we discuss about this? Because results accountability is composed of these two types of accountabilities. So, what is population accountability? Population accountability is basically the responsibility relationship between a group of partners for the well-being of a population, while performance accountability is a manager or a group of managers taking on the responsibility for the performance of the programs, agencies, or service systems they're responsible for. So basically, population accountability works more on a macro level, while performance more on a micro. And this is the result why results accountability is often seen as more comprehensive because of its integration of these two types of accountabilities. Next. Now we're going to talk further about performance accountability. And performance accountability focuses on the well-being of customer populations. What it means by customer populations is that first we have to know that customer populations are different from a whole population. Let's say let's take an example of Indonesia or a country. A country consists of many. The entire population of a country is called the whole population, while the populations the of the different provinces within that country will be called the customer population. And the different program managers that work within these different divisions or different provinces, for example, they have to be able to communicate with one another to be able to maintain a good communication needed for results accountability to be able to be attained. This that is why a program manager has two responsibilities. The first one, which is the simple one or the obvious one, is that the responsibility a program manager has the responsibility to produce the best possible performance for the program that he or she is responsible for. This is called the program management responsibility. And the second one, addressing the communication part that I mentioned earlier, is The responsibility to bring together and communicate with the right partners, in this case, the other managers from different programs, to achieve or improve results. This is called the community leadership responsibility. And the next part of chapter 2 will be presented by my colleague David. Next.
Now I'm going to present about the results accountability thinking process. So, in the results accountability thinking process, it tends to be more result oriented. The decision makings tends to be more result oriented. What I mean by this is we have to look at what we need, and then we have to make decisions based on our needs or our end goals. F- Let me give you an analogy of a leaking roof. For example, there are many types of leaking roofs. There are roofs that drip water down. There are roofs that like leak by leaking water down the walls or streaming water down the walls, etc., etc., right? And how to measure the intensity is we put a bucket, and see how much water is filled. So if the bucket is filled pretty high, that means the the leak is pretty bad, and if it's not, that means the leak is probably not that bad. So the thing is, the roof will worsen if it is not fixed. uh, if it worsens, that means uh, the height of the water in a bucket every given rainstorm will increase, right? For example, you have 10 centimeters in the first rainstorm, and then in the next rainstorm, there's going to be like 15 or 20, and so on and so forth. So this this worsening this worsening of the indicators will create a graph, a line which represents a baseline. So what I mean by this baseline is this is the baseline or the line that shows what will happen if a problem would remain unfixed. So if the baseline goes up and up and up, that means the problem will worsen and worsen and worsen, and finally it will implode, right? So we have to fix it. And fixing it will cause the baseline that was like this go like this, right? Because if we fix it, then the problem is no longer a problem, and the effects would go downwards. So this is called turning the curve. Now, what I mean by turning the curve is, well, fixing the problem. So we have to look for the cause of the leak, we have to look for things to use to fix the leak, and finally, we have to create an action plan. So, however, we have to remember the purpose the purpose of this was not to have no water leaking, but the purpose of this is to fix the roof. The height of the water is merely just an indicator of how bad it is. So we must not focus we cannot focus on the amount of water that is leaking. We have to focus on fixing the actual roof. So, in results accountability, we have to understand the story behind the baseline before taking action. For example, in this case, we have to understand why the leak was caused in order to take action, in order to make progress, right? Another thing is the charts on the wall. Uh, Aside from what I said before, we have to have a visual platform in order for employees or ourselves to see our progress. So, what I mean by this is, for example, in a fundraiser, in an online crowdfunding fundraiser, you can see like there's usually a bar, and you can see the progress of the fundraiser, and that's what I mean. That's what charts on the walls mean in order to measure the progress. So we have to first determine the most important measures. Then we have to determine the baseline for said measures. For example, Like from the previous analogy, the most important measures or indicators is the height of the water, right? The height of the water in the bucket. The higher it is, the worse the leaky roof is. And we have to determine the baseline. We have to determine how much it is going to increase, how much the baseline is going to point upwards, and etc. And the last thing is that we have to remember about false gods or false sense of end results. We have to remember that we have to remember what our end results are and what must be actually achieved. Aside from that, those are distractions. And what I mean by that is there is a certain tendency in our community right now, uh, that we kind of focus on the processes rather on the actual end result. Like for example, these four that I stated below: collaboration, system reform, funding, flexibility, reorganization. If you hear people in the streets protesting or people campaigning, you always hear, we want more collaboration, we want system reform, we want government reorganization. Is that actually what we want? Well, it is, kinda, but not really, because the end result is not actually collaboration. The end result is not actually system reform or reorganization. The end result in this case would be government efficiency and government uh, uh, improved performance, right? We don't actually need system reform, reorganization, collaboration. It's just a means. It's just a plan or a means or a medium in order for people or entities or organizations to take actions. So we have to remember that if we already achieved system reform, we cannot just say, "Yay, we achieved system reform! Yay, we achieved collaboration!" No, the problem is not solved yet, because that's not. You must remember the actual end goals that you want, not, and we must not give in to these distractions. Now I'm going to discuss about turning the curve. Like I said before, this is the visualization on your right. You can see on the top right corner, there's a graph. This is what I call a baseline. So this is the linear graph, the linear line on the graph is called the baseline or the projection without action. So that's what's gonna happen if you leave a problem unsolved, or yeah, that's what happens when you leave a problem unsolved. And the goal is to turn the curve, to fix the problem, right? So in order to fix it, you're going to have to reduce the things that are affecting the problem, right? And then you're going to fix the problem, and that's what's called turning the curve or beating the baseline. So how do you actually turn the curve? Okay, there are a few steps, including first identifying the end result goal. We have to know like what are our actual end result goals, and not fall into the allure of false gods. We cannot say like a collaborative is our end goal or our end result. No, it's, for example, if you want to save the environment and you want to collaborate with government entities, your end goal should not be uh, to finally cooperate. Your end goal is actually to save the environment. So you have to determine that pretty early on, and then you have to identify the current conditions, or how are we doing. We have to graph historic baseline and forecast for the indicator or performance measure. And then we have to identify background regarding curve and the baseline. What I mean by this is we have to tell the story. We have to explain the story about what the baseline is, and why is the baseline like that, and why did we pick those indicators. Uh, it could be positive or negative factors. It could be internal or external factors, whatever it may be. And then you have to identify partners and roles in turning the curve, because you have to have partners. And then you have to identify methods of turning the curve, how you're going to achieve it, how it's possible or not. And finally, you formulate the action plan. So in the last step, you have to propose. You and your partners propose. You and your partners propose what could be done in order to fix the problem, or in order to turn the curve. So, in order to turn the curve, there must be passion and discipline. Passion is the one that drives people to reach end goals, and it helps also to identify the end result goals, while discipline restricts and makes sure people reach the end goal. It forces on a commitment to you, because you already took on the commitment, and you have to fix it, and you have to have discipline. And results accountability can be that discipline, because it makes sure that people are disciplined, and people actually want to reach the end goal, because you have visual representation from the charts on the wall, and you have like the uh, yeah, and yeah, mostly charts on the wall. And I'm going to explain a little bit more in after this. So I'm going to explain where the results accountability thinking has actually worked, and it has worked in Tillamook County in Oregon, United States. So, a brief overview. Tillamook County had a problem with teen pregnancies in the early 90s, and they previously had a proposal of building health clinics in their public schools, but it was rejected by the peoples, because the peoples thought, why would we do that? It's a school, not a health institution, so no thank you. But then, after a few months, a report card was issued to the state of Oregon, and it stated that Tillamook County had almost the highest rate of teen pregnancies in the entirety of the state of Oregon. And people were concerned, and they actually took actions to prevent it, because they knew their end goal was teen pregnancies, right? Reducing teen pregnancies. And then their actions would be to the get to get the community to acknowledge the problem, and then schools would add more intensive sex education to the curriculum. The county health department expanded clinic hours significantly, from a processing time of 2 to 3 weeks to 48 hours processing time. And the YMCA, they sponsored the Teen at Risk program, which was a curricular activity that helped mitigate kids running off and having sex all the time and getting pregnant. And because of these actions, they actually turned the curve. Teen pregnancies decreased from 24 out of 1,000 to 7.1 out of 1,000 in the coming 4 years. And that's a great, significant leap. But like any good movie or story, there's bound to be a plot twist. So, long story short, teen pregnancies rebounded. Why? Because people lacked in progression and lost motivation. People were all like, "Yay, we solved the problem! Hooray! Teen pregnancy is no longer the issue." So partners shifted focus, and since the problem was solved, people didn't really have a reason to dwell in the problem anymore. Hence the rebound. And this is where results accountability comes in. This is where discipline comes in, you have to expect and predict a rebound because it's bound to happen. And in order to mitigate this rebound, you have to build a capacity necessary to sustain progress. For example, you regularly update measurements and indicators, or you install better permanent health clinics in schools, and maybe even create a turn the curve table structure for your local government's your local governments, like maybe create an organization dedicated to teen pregnancies and child services or things like that. And this is where discipline comes in, because even after a problem is seemingly solved, you still have to take measures. You have to still have discipline to check on the actual problem itself, and to check whether if the problem is arising or not again. And that's all for our presentation. Thank you very much, and I'll be seeing you next time, or maybe, or all right, if you guys have any questions, uh, ask in the discussion in our class. And sorry for the long video, and please enjoy. Thank you.